Welcome to Roof Topics. My name is Leo van Geest and today I'm going to talk about rooftop villages with architect Laurens van der Wal and cultural anthropologist René Roijmans. I'm going to talk about their dream of living on rooftops.
Welcome to our rooftop, Leo.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's really nice to be here again, but it's still there.
And it changes.
It changes every time. Because where are we?
Yes, we're in Delfshaven in Rotterdam, and we're on the rooftop of the Kroon, which is a multi-use building with lots of companies and ateliers and studios, and so lots of things are happening inside. And we're on the rooftop of that building.
Yeah, we're in a sort of mock-up rooftop village that we are working on. So you see already some house shapes standing here around us. So this is an experiment rooftop, you could say, where we are working on our plans and ideas.
Really nice. Before we go into that, what was for yourselves the first rooftop experience, Laurens?
That's a good question. I remember very vaguely being really young and being dragged by my architect father to Unité d'Habitation, the building of Le Corbusier. This multifunctional in Marseille, this multifunctional rooftop with a swimming pool and beautiful shapes, and at the same time, I think that's very fake. If I just think like what's like recently really been inspiring, I think it was actually a couple of years ago that I just went up on the rooftops here in Rotterdam for the first time, because that was a really beautiful one. It felt really natural. But coming up to the rooftops here, I see a barren black landscape, and I think that was even that's stuck in my mind even more.
Your epiphany about rooftops.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
And you, René?
Well, mine started in a kind of a different way, because I was working in Canada, in Vancouver, at City Farmer, which is an urban farm in the middle of the city. And we had visitors very regularly. And one day there were visitors from Seoul, from Korea, and they actually were talking about the fact that they were rooftop farmers. And I couldn't really imagine it, because I was like, these high-rise buildings, and how does it work? And I was working in the soil on this farm. Coming back after Canada, I ended up in Rotterdam and actually ended up living on rooftops. And I think one of the first times when I was looking for a different way of living in the city, I ended up walking past the Luchtsingel and seeing the Hofbogen rooftop. And I thought of this first encounter with these people that had already kind of opened up my mind. This is soil, this is new land to use, and I think that's for me that really stuck, and I think also reflects on why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Okay, so what are you doing? What are rooftop villages? I think everybody has an image, but can you be more specific about what makes a rooftop village a rooftop village? Because we build up on other buildings, we make top-ups, but you say no, we got to do something different.
Yeah, so that's indeed the common way that we top up buildings right now, is we just increase with a maximum allowed volume. We make more surface area just for people to house or people to work. But what cities need nowadays is not just to densify, to allow more people to live or work there, but they also need to be greener, to catch the rainwater, to cool the city, to provide space for ecology. But at the same time, that can be quite expensive. So what we try to do is merge these two things. Yes, we need more housing and more spaces in the city, but we also need more green. So basically we apply a sort of village shape to a rooftop. And that means that you get housing combined with nature. So small sustainable housing combined with a sort of park or a natural setting.
But when I think of a village, I also think of the social component of a village. Is that also important, or?
Very important, yeah. And that's, I think, also why it's fun that with architects and anthropologists as myself.
You are an architect, you are an anthropologist.
Exactly. We have to work on both these, and there's way more. The ecology is also a different angle, of course. But yes, the social part is very important. I think the village aspect already is within the project, because we've been building relationships with the people that own this building, with the people that talk about the rules in the city, at the municipality. With you, we've been building relationships, trust, and I think a village really is built upon how do you live together, how do you work together as a community. And I think this is one of the most important things, that we lack the space to do this in the city.
Yeah.
And that the village concept could actually provide space for people to live in a different
And the rooftops provide that space.
exactly, yeah.
And then, of course, the main question, where did it all start? Because I remember you came in with the tiny house movement where you were very active. Can you tell a bit about that? I think that was a start.
Yeah, definitely. So I studied architecture, and I had the feeling this is not enough about the social fabric of the cities. It's not enough about nature, about ecology, about climate change. And so when I first saw something about the tiny house movement in America, I was very enthusiastic, because for the first time it was a bit about less, about creating a balance, and not only about more and bigger. So I got into this tiny house movement, and I tried to find out what was going on in the Netherlands. So we set up a platform for that. And then we also designed a self-sufficient tiny house for a lady here in the Netherlands. And the funny thing is that these houses, often they were built on wheels, because they don't agree with all regulations that is there. So if it's on wheels, you can kind of skip past these regulations and you can still move it around. But the consequence is that we had to really weigh every screw and every piece of wood that we used to make it lightweight, so it could stand on the wheels. So in the end, we had this very small, self-sufficient house, very sustainably built, and we knew exactly how heavy it was, and it was actually quite light. At the same time, I was getting more into this urge that we have nowadays, that we really need to make cities greener. And I saw all these rooftops as just these black, empty spaces heating up, catching rainwater, which flushes down the street. So we needed these green roofs, but they are, as I already said, they cost some money. And then we thought, hey, but we have these small, lightweight houses. What if we can put them on the rooftop? Because they don't weigh so much. We can really combine this, and that way also create a sort of business model for green roofs.
And that was also the point that you made that rendering that now everybody uses of Rotterdam with the tiny houses on top.
Yeah, exactly. So we had this idea, we thought we just have to show it, so we can start doing it somewhere. So we just made an image of it, and then really got the ball rolling.
Yeah. And then where did you came in?
Yeah, so as I was saying, I moved to Rotterdam and was inspired by different ways of living in cities and also outside cities, elsewhere in the world. And I imagined Rotterdam feeling like a city that would also invite experiment and would have space for this, for different types of living. So I just started asking around. And I got in touch with actually our fellow dakdorper Sebastian, another architect. He had lived in a tent before a long time, taking care of a scouting place somewhere. And we talked a lot, and he was like, hey, you know what, if you're looking to live in a different way, let's talk to Laurens, because he's also thinking about different use of space in the city. And I ended up actually talking to more people in the city. Where can I live? Like, where can I pitch my tent? Literally, that's what I asked around. And a common friend of us actually connected us, and you were looking for a caretaker, a caretaker rooftop inhabitant for the month around the rooftop festival. And I imagine actually what I was just referring to before. In that time, I was working very close to the rooftop of Hofboog already, and I walked past and I saw these sheep, and it was kind of surrealistic in a way, because the long grass had kind of I don't know, it was just so weird to look at it. And on the other hand, I was like, this is the place. This is where I could have, you know, that little house in the prairie or like in the fields. And yeah, it all went really quickly.
Yeah, but then we have to first take one step back, because your tiny house movement, we brought up one house to set it up on a rooftop. That was the first experiment of really putting a tiny house on a rooftop.
Yeah, exactly. So we tried to pitch it to several people. We went to talk to real estate investors and stuff, but they're all quite hesitant, because they don't really know, what is this actually? What do you mean? How does it look? How does it work? What are the dangers? What are the risks? So when I met you and we told you about our ideas, you were immediately, well, let's just try it. And that was also really what we needed, to just show it to people. So indeed we got friends who were building a tiny house involved, and we insured their house we said, can we put it on the rooftop then
Yeah.
for a couple of days during the rooftop festival? And so that was indeed the first.
And what did you learn from that experience?
Couple of things. First of all, that it's just possible. You could just show people, well, here we did it, so it's possible in terms of the weight, in terms of adding a little structure underneath that distributes the weight. We also learned that people were not that surprised about living on rooftops, but even more about the hyper small size of these houses.
That surprised me a lot.
Yeah.
They were just, oh, what a nice house, what a tiny house, it's so tiny, and how do you do it, and where's the toilet? And he said, it's on a rooftop.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
That wasn't the special thing, that it
That's
was on a
great.
rooftop. It felt natural
Yeah, it
in a
feels
way.
natural. Yeah. Well, it feels natural. So walking around here, actually. But yeah, I think we learned a lot from that, and it helped us a lot to just show to people we can do this. Now let's try it on a bigger scale.
Yeah. And then the next year we had some rooftop urban sleep spaces. We needed a caretaker, but that was only the festival. But after that, it really began for you, because then you had the opportunity to actually live there for a year.
Yeah, they were opening up the park after the festival to the public, but with certain ideas behind it that it
And the
needed to
park
be closed.
is a park on a rooftop.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a park on a rooftop on an old train station platform, and it somehow all fell together. I mean, the second night I spent on the rooftop, I knew I want to stay here, so I've got to make sure I can stay. But this again also was about building relationships. The owners of the building had no idea if this was possible, and it was an experiment for all of us. And we actually ended up setting the first sort of contract or collaboration for 3 months maybe.
Mhm.
And I remember every month there was a question: are you okay? Like, do you still want to live on the rooftop? And I was like, yeah, no, it's great, still wonderful.
Because you also you provided some tasks for them.
Exactly, yeah. So as I was saying, they opened up a park, and they weren't really. It isn't a public space. It's a semi-private public. So the rooftop needs to be opened at dawn, and at dusk you will have to close it again. And there was no place for trash. I mean, people wanted to use this place, but there was obviously some caretaking needed. And this is what I would gladly do, because also the space provided me a really beautiful place to live.
And this is actually where we really started collaborating, because we
Yeah.
had this theoretical idea about, well, can we not do this and provide green, and it's a business model and it's houses and all that. And then Renee could stay there, and then she was looking for a house, and I still had this construction shed. So I said, well, if you're gonna stay there and you're gonna try living on a house, let's maybe make this a collaboration. Use my construction shed and put it on there, and then we can keep on theoreticizing and working on it, and you can really experience it, and then you get the real synergy of these two things coming together.
And what did you learn there?
Oh, so much. Yeah, I think one of the many things is that I really enjoyed looking at other people using the rooftop, and even exploring, or even discovering it. Because people would walk up these stairs and then suddenly look, what is this? And as my first encounter with the rooftop, it's magical, but it also calms you down. It gives you a sense of overview of the city, which you don't have that feeling when you're in the street. Youngsters would come and do things that you wouldn't see them do on a regular bench in the streets, which might be good, but on the other hand, it felt really cool that there's space in the city where people can actually be themselves and kind of let go and create a little space for themselves. And on the other hand, as I already said before, it was new land, literally.
Yeah.
I could work on the land. There were fruit trees, there was stuff to eat that was growing throughout
But in
the
the end, it
seasons.
was also more a park and not a living space.
Exactly, yeah. And I think one of the things that I learned also the hard way is that people couldn't see that I was living there. And I think also, youngsters also break things, and my house was broken into several times. And that's because it was also not very clear to them that somebody was living there.
Yeah.
So this is something that we would definitely do different on another rooftop.
I think like one of the big takeaways from that for me was that it's really helpful to just start living it, to get people into it, to get people excited, to explain it, to get people interested in us.
Tell the story.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And at the same time, we also saw, well, this was already developed into a green roof. It's public space. What our next step should be is to find a barren roof like this, like with just black tar on the rooftop basically, and see if we can actually develop that into a rooftop village from zero to the full thing.
So then we came here, which is a very nice rooftop bit on the side of Rotterdam, but you see the Euromast and all the big buildings. We even have a Dutch windmill. We are in the harbor in a way. We are next to a big road, which you probably will hear now. Why is it a good roof?
Well, it's exactly a typical roof. It's like, it's empty, it's black, it's a typical office building, it's flat. There's a lot of these things. There's like exactly, well, you probably already mentioned that multiple times, but there's just so many hundreds of meters of this kind of roof here. So if we can do it here,
millions,
like New York. If I can do it there, if I can make it there, I can make it anywhere. That's a bit the idea here. By testing it out here, we learn all the lessons we need to see how feasible it is, what it costs, what kind of buildings we can put here, and how to repeat that elsewhere.
And of course also that's very building which is very alive. A lot of young people experimenting with an owner who's also thinking about, okay, what we're going to do with this area. So you're in a whole innovative place and an innovative space.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it could only be done in such a place where you get the freedom, the liberty, where there's temporary developments going on.
It's maybe a bit like the Dakakker, which also was on a rooftop of a communal building with young people who are experimenting why a Dakakker could flourish there to start. So that was maybe for the rooftop farming, this will be for the rooftop living.
Yeah, so maybe that also says something about the kind of city fabric we need to create to get more of these movements if you turn it around. Like you can learn from here, but how do you get these movements started up? That's another way.
Okay, and then what I see is, I see they are meant to be houses, but they're still constructions. Well, what are we looking at?
Yeah, so these are kind of models for us. So we put them on here on the one hand to learn, hey, what kind of space these certain dimensions of housing require, and what does that mean for the space that's left over for green. It also shows people from the street level that something is going on here. And it also shows what is actually going on here and what it actually means. So these are sort of space holders until we can really put housing on here. But to really do that, you need to really come up with you need to answer some complex questions about the construction, about calculations, about fire and security for fire, about ecology, about the legal restrictions and the legal plans. So there's a lot of these more specific research parts that we need.
Sounds really boring.
It's been a really fun road, to be honest.
Well, some parts are more boring.
Parts are more boring, but I think one of the fun things about rooftops is, on the one hand, people are very sort of cautious about them because it keeps us dry. In the Netherlands, that's typically important. But on the other hand, because we ask a somewhat surprising question to people that are usually just talking about these boring things within the normal norms, we get really sort of, we don't know how that works. No, we don't think it's possible. And then we think, now it becomes interesting.
So we kind of spice it up for them, you could say. So if we call somebody from a fire calculation company, you're like, you want to do what? Ooh, this is a nice end of the year project. And then they get on board, and so in that way it's
really
kind of
nice.
fun.
And where are you now in that process?
So we apply the first kind of permit, you could say, but that is a permit to test what still needs improvement. So that's what we did, and then we got answers back from that, and the answers were quite positive, because it was not full no. It was like this could be possible, so we'll help you develop it further. And so now we have all these questions, all these answers back that we need to provide new answers to, all these new questions, and we're delving into that and making a definitive design to really apply for a permit.
You made already a maquette, I saw. Is that a sketch? Is that what's actually going to be here?
Yeah. So we made various models. One of them is a bigger, like 1:50 model, and that one is indeed the design that we see happening right here, right now. And that is a design with existing tiny houses. We make sort of construction fortifications, and we put them on this roof, and we green around that. We're also working on designs for more the long term. Because here we'll be working on a temporary development, but if we were going to do this for an indefinite period, for bigger buildings, it might require other designs, more dense.
What is temporary?
But now we're working on something that would stand here for a decade at max, because this is an area that's really in development, so we might have
The
to-
whole building could be gone in 10 years.
Yeah, could
Perhaps.
very well be. Yeah. So that's what we're working on right now. And that's also why we have quite some freedom to test
Yeah.
here. But obviously, you also want to do this for a longer term.
And you want to set an example.
Exactly.
And when are the houses coming up? Is this next summer or?
Yeah, we hope to do that around that time. Yeah, indeed, when the weather
Around
is
the
a
rooftop
bit
festival,
warmer again.
perhaps.
Yeah.
Rooftop festival, yeah.
Would be nice.
Yeah.
But and do people queue up to live here, or
Oh,
are
it's
they
been-
already selected?
They haven't been selected yet, but we I think once we started the website and once we kind of started collaborating and having more I don't know, publicity around that we were already living on rooftops a bit, people were literally sending us emails. Hey, I need to leave my house next month. How about your
Can I
rooftop
come?
village?
Yeah, so there is a bit of a queue. There is a waiting list.
Yeah.
That we have now, yeah.
Which shows, I think, the one thing it shows is that people are really eager to live in tinier spaces, but also live in a different way and also take care of their environment while they live in a new environment.
Maybe even to the will that people would like to contribute to some
Yeah.
way of improving their neighborhood.
And you're both gonna live here, or
That would be great.
Yeah.
you're on the list?
We're
on the
definitely on the list.
Well,
Yeah,
we wanna do that to experience it for ourselves, but we also wanna give other people a chance. So
Yeah.
it will be a combination. If all goes well, that we would spend some time here ourselves and also have other people give other people a chance
Yeah.
to live here.
Because when they're gonna live here, they're gonna sign a contract for a few years, or how does that work?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Probably we're probably going to provide some spaces for people to like bring your own house.
Yeah.
They put it on the rooftop here, and we're probably going to put some things on there that we rent out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it'll be a combination of both.
Okay, maybe also for foreign people to just live here for a few months and exchange.
Yeah, we would like to keep one space open for a quick. How do you say that?
Yeah, turnover, as in
Quick turnover
for
in a way
more
that-
people to
Yeah,
experience
so that
it.
it's almost a bit like a holiday kind of tours that you would stay here, to have also maybe artists or people who come from
Residences.
abroad, residences, yeah, to have people here to experience this. Yeah, really nice.
But and spread the word even further, because that's also when you get residents, people
Yeah.
tell about it and you show to the world. I think that's very important. What I think is that we should call this part 1, and we should be back here in next summer
Mhm.
and make part 2 about what we're doing there.
Yeah, that would be great.
Can we agree on that?
Oh,
Sounds
for
good.
sure. You're
Let's do
welcome.
that, yeah.
You're
Oh.
welcome. Yeah.
For now, thank you for inviting me
Yeah.
this wintry day on your rooftop, and I'm looking very much forward to seeing you again in half a year and see what we have done.
Yeah, hope to
Amazing.
receive you in our school.
Thank you.